I like hitting the snooze bar, but that makes me late. Got some questions. Let's get all this ready. All right. Yeah, we're on track. Boom. That's bright in my eyeballs. Oh, that's better. That's yesterday's. Here we are. And the sign. And the coffee. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today is Wednesday, August 7th, 2019. My name is Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee in a rabbit mug. Well, all right. So, hope everybody's doing well. Hope you had a great Tuesday. My whole day was thrown off because I coached CrossFit yesterday, and I coached CrossFit on Wednesdays, not Tuesdays, but I swapped with someone. Someone was out of town and said, hey, can you cover for me? So I did. And what was really funny about that was that not only did it throw my day off, people walked in, saw me, and had to stop for a second because in their mind it was Tuesday, but then they saw me and went, wait, no, it is Tuesday. So that was kind of fun. It's amazing how much we get into a routine, these habits that we're stuck to. So, yeah. Well, what's going on? Anything else big happened yesterday? No, nothing else big yesterday. Some big rain, some thunder and lightning. Oh, and I started watching the 36th Chamber of Shaolin for reasons that I will tell you about. Let's see, will I tell you about them now? Sure. Collaborating with another podcast on Monday, and we are talking about and reviewing the classic Kung Fu film, The 36th Chamber of Shaolin. So I started watching it. This is a couple hours long, and I don't really have a couple hour blocks to watch things too often. In fact, my goal is to watch it twice before Monday, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So, what's going on today? Today, bunch of work around here, possibly doing some work at the co-working space, my new place to get way too much done. I am speaking at one of the local Rotary clubs about some marketing things. And then I'm not coaching CrossFit. It's weird. It's a weird day. So I don't know what I'm doing. But we got some questions, and I'm going to answer them. And if you'd like to ask me questions, you can drop them below, and then I'll answer them. All right. Here we go. Let's start with this one. This is a good one. Many people have a negative impression of competition. Of martial arts competition. There we go. What is your view? Like most things, I'm open. So I think competition has some great benefits, but it can also have a downside. And depending on your personality and your goals in the martial arts, is going to affect whether or not it's something you should do at all or should do routinely. So here's what I mean. Competition, and the idea of competition, generally brings out some anxiety for people. So the idea that you're doing some martial arts under some anxiety is great. It's something that most of us don't experience too often. And that's really valuable when you start to think about self-defense. If you step up to do your form and your heart's beating through your chest and you can't remember your movements and you can't get through the form, there's something that you can practice. Now, if you can, there's some value there. In fact, I credit my ability to do well under pressure with the very many times that I did my form in front of large groups of people in competition. Yeah. where does it start to go sour? There are people out there who are so dedicated to competition that their training becomes exclusively about competition. And as many of you know, I'm a firm believer that a diverse, a well-rounded martial artist is a good martial artist. So if you're spending all of your time on any one thing, whether that's competition or only forms or only this or only self-defense, I think you should branch out. I think you should round out that circle. There's a nice visual aid for you. I made a circle. Everybody knows what a circle is. And if you're competing all the time and your training is only for that competition, you're probably neglecting some other aspects of your progress, your development as a martial artist. A lot of people don't enjoy the stress, the anxiety that comes up with competition. And that is exactly why I think everyone should do at least one. Everyone should compete at least once. And in fact, that was the advice of my original instructors. And I still agree with it. To compete one time, to experience that, I think is pretty valuable. What life lessons do you think competition can teach us? So one of the things that I like about martial arts is that here's the line that I often give. Martial arts is one of the few things that gives back exactly and only what you put in. Competition breaks that. You can put in a ton of time, you can become significantly better at your form and still be the worst person in your division. You can still come in last place. You can put in a ton of time on your sparring and go to competition and you end up with some crummy judges who don't see the things that you score, or they're biased and are favoring the other person, and you lose. Okay? Learning that lesson, that sometimes life is unfair, is pretty valuable. I remember as a kid crying after a lot of early tournaments. And it created a lot of conversation with my mother and I. And lessons that took a long time to learn about fair and effort and things like that. You know, I learned a lot about discipline and training when I was competing in my teens, because when I first started competing heavily, I was doing okay. You know, I was routinely coming in third place, fourth place. But I learned what it took to get to first place. It took more effort. It took more intelligent effort. It took talking to the referees and saying, what are you looking for that I'm not providing? And that helped. I got better. So I think that's the number one lesson that you can learn. We got a comment here. I competed once. The guy was 6'4" and nearly broke me. I'm 5'10" and we were yellow belts. Forms only for me now. If you want to see some of the scariest divisions, it's not the adult men black belts. It's the adult men either white yellow belts or red brown belts. The white yellow belts have no idea what's going on and will use strength to compensate for lack of skill. And then the red brown belts often have something they're trying to prove. And yeah, you get some monsters in there, some 6-footers that, whew. He says, oh yeah, it was brutal. I'm sure. I'm very glad that I never had to compete against people that large at that rank. So. But remember, different tournaments and different circuits allow different types of contact. So just because one division at one tournament is going to let people really bang it out, it's not necessarily going to happen everywhere. And then our final question today, what are the pros and cons of competing? I think we pretty much covered this, but let me give it to you in a little bit more of a list form. It was meant to be point sparring. Point sparring does tend to get a little a little rough, but again, it can be very different depending on where you are. So the pros of competing: it gives you something to train for, which a lot of people benefit from. It can introduce you to a lot of other people. In fact, some of the people that have been supportive of whistlekick are people I met in competition. The very first person to step up and offer their support in pretty much everything I've done with whistlekick is Master Hughes and Alexander, who I first met as a teenager on the competition circuit. And it's not that we were even friends. We didn't stay in touch, but because we knew each other, and we didn't even know each other well. It was more I knew who he was and vice versa. We weren't in the same division. He was the first person to offer a quote that I could use on the website about the gear. He was episode 1 of Martial Arts Radio. He's become a good friend. He's the coach of Team Whistlekick. I mean, I don't know what else I can say about that. That connection came from my time competing. Other benefits: you get to try out new things and see how other people feel about them. You get to observe what other people are doing and borrow ideas. Part of the reason I went to college in Worcester, Mass was because I wanted to train with someone I met on the tournament circuit. Cons: there are people who will say it takes away from the true nature of martial arts, that personal development, that progress there. I can see the point. For some people, it can become addictive, that's all they're focused on. It can create an identity issue, and that's something that I experienced as a teenager. What does that mean? I identified with competing in martial arts and doing well. So when I wasn't competing, or when I wasn't doing well, there was a crisis of identity there. And I guess the last negative is that being judged by other people can kind of stink sometimes. So you got to be ready. You got to go into it for the right reasons. If you're going because you're trying to come away with a trophy or a medal, it's probably not the thing to do. If you're going in to test yourself, to get some other opinions on how you're doing, to learn, to meet people, because you don't have anything else to do on a Saturday and you want to train in a different way, absolutely. I think that's the place to do it. It's a great time. Tournament season is kind of on a hiatus. July has nothing around here. August, we've got a couple, albeit one next Saturday, unfortunately. The two that are around here on the same darn day. And then we start back up in September. So I think that's a pretty good overview of competition, and would love to hear your thoughts, your comments on your time in competition. Drop them below. You know, some discussion is good, some dialogue is good. Your experiences, the ups, the downs. Competition doesn't have to be full contact, walking away with a broken nose kind of stuff. Ask your questions below or email them to me, jeremy@whistlekick.com. You can find the show later at firstcupwithjeremy.com. Email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com. Coffee hasn't kicked in. You can find the show later at firstcupwithjeremy.com or in audio form in your podcast app. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications. We do the show every weekday morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern, here on YouTube. And now for your homework. Competition, and even the idea of competition, can stress a lot of people out. Some of you out there have probably competed, some of you have not. Totally fine. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Today, I'm not going to suggest you find a tournament to compete at. I'm not going to suggest that you review footage of other people competing. If you were to compete, how would you prepare? I'm not even going to tell you what kind of competition. I'm not going to tell you why you're doing it. But what would your preparation schedule look like? Would you prepare for 2 weeks or 3 months? Would you change your diet? Would you change how often you go to class? Would you train at home? How would you train at home? Just spend a couple minutes considering what your competition preparation would look like. Ideally, write it down and then look at it. There's a lot that's going to tell you about you, how much value you would place on competition, how much value you place on being prepared for things, and how prepared or unprepared you think you would be at this point to compete. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Peace. Oh, open the camera.